Hey guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today, honoring my clanmate over in Elite Gaming. We are now 20 in the world as of right now, number 20 clan that is, and we are boasting the highest level 11 in all of the North American region. So let's go ahead and take a look at where Keaton is right now. Of course, at the time of this recording, I will upload today or tomorrow. So you'll see Keaton, if we scroll down here, no level 11s, there he is. Keaton, the highest level 11 in the U.S., I guess, in the United States. So let's go ahead and take a look at his deck today. He's been kind enough to share a few replays, all against higher level folks out there. So we'll go ahead and review this deck, this Hog and Miner deck. It's a really cool deck. It's really powerful, but you have to know how to use it. You have to know when to use your Hogs. You have to know when to use your Miners. You have to know when to be aggressive and when to be passive. So here he was able to sneak this Hog in before the opponent was able to counter with that cannon there. That's a valuable 3 hits to start off the match there, and you can see he's already ready to defend, excuse me, with more elixir than the opponent has right now. So as we watch these replays today, we will go over some strategy tips when playing a deck like this, mainly a deck with, you know, Barbarians, Miner type combos, and we'll especially cover how to counter the popular decks out there right now, namely Royal Giant, because it seems like most people at 35 or 3500, excuse me, or above are playing either the Hog, either the Miner, or the Royal Giant deck. So we'll definitely discuss how to counter decks like this with the Royal Giant. So obviously, if you know, as soon as you know that your opponent is playing a Royal Giant, by the way, these tips are coming straight out of Keaton's mouth here. We were able to chat, and he was able to give me some tips for the viewers here on how he got to, where does he at, 4,200 cups or so as a level 11 this early in the season. Pretty impressive. So number one thing he says is if you're going against a Royal Giant deck, what you want to do is always hold, with a deck like this, not the Barbarians, but always hold the Ice Wizard for when they play the Royal Giant. You need to slow him down because he's going to get guaranteed hits, especially because this deck does not have cannon or anything that can distract that Royal Giant. No Elixir Pump. Another reason why I like the deck, by the way, is that there is no Elixir Collector, right? So the Elixir Collector is getting a pretty substantial nerf. It's going to be affected by slowdown effects, namely Poison and Ice Wizard. Of course, it can be affected by speed up effects too, but I don't think there's going to be that many people raging their elixir pumps. The only way to get value of, by the way, as a side note on the raging your elixir pumps, is if you rage 2 at the same time. If you just rage 1 elixir pump, you won't break even in that trade at all. In fact, you'll lose in that trade. So anyway, back to this match here. You want to save your Ice Wizard for when your opponent has a Royal Giant. The Barbarians you can actually use on offense with this deck. Now, Keaton says he's a really big fan of using Barbarians, Ice Wizard, and a Princess behind that. So Barbarians, Ice Wizard, Princess. Now, ideally, that would be on a successful defense, or for example, right here. Look at Ice Wizard. As soon as that Royal Giant is placed, then you have those Barbarians. Now, when you place the Barbarians against the Royal Giant, you do want to kind of shift the area that you place them in. That sounds like a very little tip there, but it's actually very valuable. Oftentimes, when your opponent, especially if they're playing a Royal Giant Fireball deck, they'll time that fireball right on top of their Royal Giant, so you can really throw them off and cause them to waste a fireball if you place those Barbarians a little bit off to the side, either a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, like you saw Keaton do there, to the left actually. And now we have a tie game, but it's not tied because Keaton already did a lot of damage to that right tower as well. That's the thing that, guys, when they know the Hog is coming, sometimes you have to switch up the tower a little bit there, and you can see he's using his Miner very cleverly to take down that Elixir Collector. And in just a second or two, we're going to see the first win here by Keaton. Now, Keaton said, obviously, the most important card in this deck, you guys can probably guess it, and this card might be seeing a lot more action than it already is seeing right now in game, and that is Zap. You guessed it. Zap is such a versatile spell, both on defense and certainly on offense. Certainly combined with the Hog Rider, they can be a real lethal weapon, as you guys probably already know. They'll one-shot those low hit point goblins, skeletons, etc., and they'll also really save you on defense. See those 3 musketeers coming at you, drop the Zap, and then immediately the Barbarians take them down if you have to. It works in a lot of different scenarios. So here, right off the bat, again, we're going against a Royal Giant, and again, you guys predicted it by now. It's the Ice Wizard taking down the Royal Giant a little bit here. Even with the Royal Giant followed by those Fire Spirits, you can see he's not doing a lot of damage to that tower. Meanwhile, Keaton's able to counter that with just simply an Ice Wizard in Goblins, and here he goes. He's turning it into a successful offense again. Now, he's not going to get a lot of damage on this tower here on this little offensive push, but a significant amount of offense, and he did it with that combo we talked about earlier, right? So Barbarians can be used offensively in this deck, and they can be really hard to stop when you play Barbarians with a Hog Rider. And if you back them up with either an Ice Wizard or a Princess or both, then you're looking really, really good. By the way, guys, for those of you who don't like to see legendary decks, you prefer to keep it all common and rare, I do have a special one of those coming up for you guys soon. Coming from a clanmate of mine who's over 4,400 trophies. Granted, he's maxed out, but he's over 4,400 trophies, and he's playing a strictly common and rare deck. So I'll bring that to you guys, if not the next video, then the one after that for sure. So he lost a tower there to the Royal Giant, and that's going to happen when you're playing Royal Giants, right? They just keep picking away at those towers, and eventually you're going to lose one. But you can't panic, you can't give up, and by all means, you cannot leave the match early, especially if you're an underdog like this. I can't tell you the number of times, I'm sure you've all experienced it, right? Hopefully on the right end of this, not the wrong end, but I can't tell you the number of times where I'm going against as a level 11, almost a Town Hall 11, as a level 11, I can't tell you the number of times I'm going against a level 10, and they just give up after one tower's down, giving me the 3 crown. I've probably gotten about 50% of my 3 crowns, I think, just by people giving up throughout the match. I never give up on defense, even though maybe people give up just because of the time factor, because it's easier to give up and then just keep playing rather than finishing off the match. But you know, I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, but I've had so many come from behind victories when it looked like things were really bad early on. And Keaton's going to do the same here in this replay. So he played the Miner, and then the defender there made the mistake of countering that Miner with a Barbarians, which is a fine counter, but they placed them way behind the tower, anticipating where the Miner was going to be. If you're going to counter a Miner with Barbarians, you're really better off placing the Barbarians almost directly on that tower, right in front of the tower. That way they'll split, and a couple of them will preoccupy those minions or goblins or whatever's coming down the lane, and then a couple of them will go on over to the Miner as well. So this time Cat here takes down that right tower now, so things are not looking too great, but look at this. He was able to sneak in minions and goblins, I believe, and then get the Hog Rider down. Princess is helping out, everybody's helping out in just with a nick of time. Now remember here, in all 3 of these replays I'm sharing you with this deck today, Keaton is a significant underdog as far as card levels go, so keep that in mind here. This is definitely a solid deck, but I had him share replays only where he was the underdog, so you guys can get a feel at how successful this deck can be, even if you are going against an opponent who is much tougher than you on paper. So another impressive win there, this time a 3 crown against Cat there. So we're going to move on to the 3rd and final match here. Let's see who it's against. TK. So we're going against TK here, and this guy is not playing a Royal Giant deck, so we'll take a little break from Royal Giants. Instead, this guy's playing a Hog Rider deck with the Elixir Pump and whatnot, so it's basically a cycle deck, and he has the Barbarian. You have to, the thing with a cycle deck is a lot of people ask me in the comments to bring back the cycle deck. I was one of the first people who shared, to my knowledge, the first, but who knows with YouTube, right? But it shared the concept of a Hog cycle deck, right? So I played it early on, was a big fan. A lot of my clanmates actually turned me on to it. It's not like I discovered the deck or anything, but I was a big fan of the Hog cycle deck, but you can't use it as we used to share it. A lot of people, it's funny, when I'm reading my YouTube comments sometimes, I'll go back to old videos, and I'll see some people commenting today on these Clash Royale videos, and I hate to say this because it's really taking money out of my pocket in a way, but you can't watch the old videos for up-to-date strategy advice. You have to watch something relatively new within the last week or 2 or 3, however long it's been since the last balance update came, because if you look at my old Hog cycle decks or any of my early decks when the game was first released, they're not going to make any sense in today's meta strategy because the balancing has changed. There's been new cards added to the game, and with the Hog Rider deck, my very first Hog cycle deck, I didn't have anything to counter Royal Giants at all. That was before the Royal Giants range had been increased, so it really changes. I mean, obviously, there were no Miners in the game. There were no Sparkies in the game. I had no Barbarians in the deck. You didn't need those strong counters back then at all. As long as you had a cannon in your deck back then, you were totally good to go. Now it's a much different picture. So if you want to do a cycle deck nowadays, it almost has to include, in the competitive ends of the game, like over 3,500 trophies, it almost has to include a Barbarian to counter or a mini P.E.K.K.A to counter, because you have to counter all these people playing these Royal Giant decks. So So that's why you can see TK is playing Barbarians in there, where the original Cycle deck was basically the same deck he's using without the Barbarians. He's also playing Freeze Spell, which is still popular despite the constant little tiny nerfs. Freeze Spell still very popular in the game. So now you can see Keaton actually doing pretty well in this match here. He's got a lot of damage off that right tower and a significant amount off that left tower as well. So no Elixir Pump in Keaton's deck, so he's going to go ahead and stay on the aggressive here. Make sure he, every time the opponent places the Elixir Collector, you should be thinking, oh no, that's not good. But at the same time, you should be thinking, now is a perfect opportunity for me to do a little offensive push on my own, because if somebody plays an Elixir Collector, especially in the mid-match, obviously they have no more than 5 or 6 Elixir on them. So keep that in mind. And if you have 8 Elixir and someone just plays a Collector, it should be a good time as any to go ahead and get a little offensive surge in there. And Keaton does just that, and he takes down both towers now. So both towers down. He almost gets a few hits on that King Tower, but it's going to be a 2-tower victory. The poor opponent must not need his crown chest because he didn't even do anything on that 1 hit point right tower. So guys, thank you so much for Keaton for sharing these strategy tips and his deck with us, and thank you all for watching till the end of the episode. Let me know in the comments below if you did get to the end of the episode, because I really appreciate that, guys, taking a little time out of your day to hang out with me, and I truly do appreciate it. As always, guys, take care.